Hello, the mask is back, and this is a great card. UFC 314. Let's just jump into it, man. I got lots of underdogs, and I've done my research, but usually on these cards where they're massive, and I actually do my research, I end up getting a lot of them wrong. So let's just see how it goes. But I've done my research. Aside from a few fights here early on, like this one, I'm basically just picking Nora because she's more proven and she's um, fought better opposition and lost against better opposition. She's a kickboxer. She does everything pretty much better than Haley. So I'm just going to go with the decision, probably 29-28. And then we got Trayshawn Gore versus Marco Tulio. Now, Marco Tulio against the Ukrainian guy. Let me just see. Yeah, Ihor Potieria. Marco Tulio found really good counters, and even though his boxing looked a little bit suspicious at moments, I think that overall he has much better boxing than Trayshawn Gore, who, although has a little better reach, it's practically the same, and he mostly has guillotines and jiu-jitsu to entanglements. I don't think that he's going to be better on the feet, and that's mostly where I see this fight taking place. So I'm going to go with the round one KO. Probably not too vicious, though, because not as vicious as Ihor Potéria's KO because I think Trayshawn Gore has a better chin. And then Sumo Derji versus Mitch Raposo. I'm gonna go with Sumo Derji actually because even though yes he has a three-fight loss streak, Mitch Raposo on the other hand hasn't been winning against any good opposition. Now he lost against good prospect in what's his name I forget, but the Brazilian Andre Lima. And oh, it was a split decision, so that means that he's good, right? No, the split decision was unjustified. It should have been unanimous, and either way, that was a bad camp for Andre Lima. I'm pretty sure he missed weight, so it wasn't even a good camp for him. You could see in his last fight that he looked insanely good, so that was an off night. And then Sumadarji, he's fighting the best guys, and I thought that he beat Charles Johnson. Nobody's talking about that. I thought he beat Charles Johnson, okay? And he was stuffing the takedowns beautifully. He has an insane height and reach advantage, especially the reach. And I think he's going to keep him at bay and time him with some beautiful elbows. You saw that against um, what was his last war against Matt Chanel. He's gonna land those beautiful elbows that he did against Matt Chanel, and he's gonna get a beautiful 30-27. I truly believe that. I could see a KO even. And then Cedricus Dumas versus Mikhail Oleksiejczuk. I'm gonna go with a round two, early in round two, vicious KO because um, I know that it was I believe it was an eye poke, not Ramazan Tamirov, Nursultan Ruzaboyev got on him. I know that he got an eye poke, but he landed the shots afterwards, and I understand that it was a foul, but he was going on to win that fight. And boxing has always been a bit of a problem for Zydrunas Dumas. Now takedowns have been a problem for Mikhail Zaitchuk, but Zydrunas Dumas is not the grappler that other people are. And guys like Kevin Holland didn't take him down. He got dropped and then got the sub, and Mikhail didn't tap to Kevin Holland. On top of that, Mikhail had much better opposition, and he's gone close to closer decisions with a guy like Sharamogomedov and other great opposition in comparison to a Cedricus Dumas getting a close decision that I thought was kind of 50-50 against Denis Talulin. That is not good. And so the only thing here that I see that Cedricus Dumas has better here is maybe a jab and a takedown. But the jab, we saw that Mikhail Oleksiejczuk got in on the bigger guys against like what's his name? Kennedy. No, no, no. It's the guy who's yeah Chidi Nchidawani, uh, who's been on a tear right now. He got inside the range of that guy who's not much taller, but taller and longer and even more dangerous, I would say. and he got inside the range and after getting hurt early and found the beautiful boxing combinations and power that he needed to. So I think that this is a clear round two KO or TKO, probably KO for Mikhail Oleksiejczuk. Cedric Dumas is not that good. We're talking close fights against Dennis Tululin and even Cody Brundage. He had a stinker against. So I'm not a fan of picking Cedric Dumas here. I've seen some other people pick him as an underdog. I don't like it. And you'll see on the night of the fight. And Darren Elkins versus Julian Erosa. Uh, Julian Erosa, yeah, I mean, he's not great anywhere, and neither is Darren Elkins, aside from the guillotine, I would say, for Julian Erosa, and for Darren Elkins, maybe the grittiness, and maybe a little bit in the takedown area, he's pretty good, but these guys are so old, especially Darren Elkins, that they're not great anywhere these days. Darren Elkins could maybe just outgrit Julian Erosa in the second or third, but I think that Julian Erosa is probably going to get a 29-28, getting some decent jiu-jitsu entanglements if it gets to the ground, and uses superior height and reach to just outdo Darren Elkins in the boxing for the first round, and then probably most of the second round. So I'm going to say a pretty clear 29-28 for Julian Erosa, Juicy J, as his nickname is there. A cool nickname. I think it's quite fitting for him. Decision. And then Chase Hooper versus Jim Miller. I could honestly see a pretty vicious ground and pound TKO, but I'm gonna have to go with a submission. If anyone's gonna get a sub on this card, it's probably Chase Hooper. And I'm gonna say in the second round, I'm gonna say that Jim Miller actually survives most of the first round because he's actually, he's unlike Clay Guida, he's not totally washed. So I'm gonna have to say that he survives certain entanglements and survives certain ground and pound exchanges early on. And I know that Chase Hooper doesn't have the best shots in the world, but I'm going to say that he finds a way to get it to the ground early on. Maybe he shoots for a single leg, maybe a double, but I would say I would put my money on. I'm not a betting man, but I would put my money on a single leg, something like that, maybe a clinch work, and then honestly as well, if you actually go back. Certain people are saying, "Oh, I actually think that Jim Miller would have the striking advantage here," but I think that Jim Miller Chase Hooper is gonna find the submission or the takedown to find the ground and pound. I actually think that that's a silly take. If you watch Chase Hooper's last few fights, people are only going to point to the Vyacheslav Borshev knockdown. No, if you actually go back and rewatch the Clay Guida fight, he also outstruck Clay Guida in almost every exchange, I feel like. And so you go back to that fight, it's pretty clear that he was outstriking him if you go and rewatch that. So I think that he even has the striking advantage with the kicks, with the jabs, even some combinations on the guard. Pretty good from Chase Hooper. So I'm going to say that he actually kind of frustrates a guy like Jim Miller on the feet, stifles him, and then he for whatever reason, similar to a Paddy Pimblett, Bobby Green. Well, actually, the reason is because he's stifled on the feet. But similar to that fight, he's gonna shoot on a takedown because he's just frustrated with the kicks, maybe some of the handwork, maybe some of the jabs and some looping shots on the guard. And I'm gonna say that he shoots on a sloppy takedown and gets subbed, something like that. And then Verna Jandiroba versus Yao Jianyan. This is actually a really, really hard one to predict because I think that Yao Jianyan, with her feints, with her jabs, with her better footwork, with her hooks, with her striking, with some kicks. I think that she's definitely the better striker, but Verna Jandiroba isn't that far behind. She is actually decent on the feet. Now, what worries me is that she did go to a close decision against what's her name? I can't believe I'm forgetting. Lupita Godinez, that's right. And, some people thought that she lost that fight, and she's definitely not as high level as Yao Jianyan, but the difference here is the jiu-jitsu, and I think that Yao Jianyan, you know, getting almost practically subbed by what's her name? How am I forgetting? The champion. Weili Zhang. I can't believe I almost forgot that. Weili Zhang, the fact that she almost got subbed by her, it's also not a great look because, I mean, yes, she's really good on the ground as well, Weili Zhang, but she's not the jiu-jitsu practitioner as a Verena Jandiroba, in my opinion. Okay, I think that got better takedowns, but she's not got the jiu-jitsu of a Verna Jandiroba. So I think that if she gets it to the ground, which I think she will, I think Jandiroba gets a sub here. I think she gets the back and she gets a beautiful rear naked choke in the third round. That's my prediction here. I'm gonna say that things get kind of um, hairy in the first round because she's gonna struggle to get things to the ground, but then she gets a late takedown, and then in the second round it's more Yao Yan. But then Verna Jandiroba finds her shot in the early uh, goings of the third round, and she gets it done. So I'm gonna say a third round sub. And then last prelim, Dan Ige versus Sean Woodson. I'm gonna have to say Sean Woodson gets this done easily. It's a similar thing with a lot of the other fighters early on in the card, where it's just a reach issue here. For Dan Ige, he's just so tiny. It's like he literally looked like he was a foot shorter. Now, I know that someone else said this, some other MMA YouTuber, but it's true. It's like literally a foot taller in reach he looked like, or in height. It's crazy. And then he practically has that same amount in reach as well, in arm reach. And he's just been on a tear. He's been on a aside from that draw, or DQ, I believe it was a draw. Sean Woodson's been on an absolute tear, getting 4 wins after that, and he's been more active, I would say. I might be wrong on that, but they've both been pretty active. But meanwhile, Danny Gay's been losing in these closer fights where you could say some people would argue that he lost or won, even though I think that he lost all the losses that he's had. Some would say that he's won, and so that would be like frustrating for him, where it's like, oh, I should be winning, what's happening? And so he could be going for it more where he shouldn't, and getting caught in these moments where Sean Woodson's, you know, the much better sniper, even his nickname suggests that, and it's true. I mean, if you look at his fights, he has beautiful feints, um, great setups, nice 1-2, um, very good jab. He just is very textbook with his boxing, even though he's also got a really weird build for boxing. He's got a decent kickboxing game as well, although I wouldn't be mad at calf kicks. Those would be really good here for Danny Gay, I feel like, to get into the range as well. And to disable Sean Woodson, but I'm gonna have to say that Danny Gay, since he mostly relies on his power punching and his boxing, I'm gonna have to say that he gets pieced up here via decision. And we have Nikita Krylov versus Dominic Reyes. I'm actually going to go with Dominic Reyes here, okay? Some may be surprised by that, but I'm going to have to go with a round 1 KO for Dominic Reyes. The thing about Nikita Krylov is, yes, he's really, really good, but the thing about him is he's mostly good with his grappling. Yes, he found good moments against Magomed Ankalaev, but if you actually go back and rewatch that fight like I did, he actually uh, was mostly getting good exchanges on the feet due to him being awkward. He would go for this um like apologies by the way. I'm still a little sick, so apologies if I sound a little weird here, but he would like go for the body kick and then he would pop the straight right behind it. And so that would kind of surprise Magomed Ankalaev here because that's kind of unorthodox, and he would constantly go to that. And so Magomed would eventually find the timing on that, but early on that would really surprise Magomed Ankalaev. And Dominic Reyes, in my opinion, is like a lesser version of Magomed Ankalaev, where he has definitely worse defense, but he has great counter ability, and he's got amazing on the front foot, amazing aggression, amazing accurate punches. And so I'm going to say Dominic Reyes actually finds his timing because Nikita Krylov does not have very good hands. He mostly just wildly throws punches in range, and he's mostly able to get away with it because he has a great reach, a great height, a great power, speed, athleticism behind it, and his kicks as well. He mixes it in with the kicks. That's how he did Volkan Oezdemir dirty with the kicks. I'm not saying he's a dirty fighter. I'm just saying that's how he got it done against Volkan Oezdemir. He did him dirty with those kicks. He was constantly mixing it up with the boxing, straight punches, in flurries with the kicks, and so. That's how he got him done, but I think that the problem with Dominic Reyes is he's not gonna just stand there and watch all these punches get around the guard, because Volkan Oezdemir, he's like a pretty traditional boxer. But did I say Dominic? I meant Volkan. But Dominic Reyes, on the other hand, he's a counterpuncher. He's Sometimes he's not, but sometimes he really is, and he's really good. And you'll see that against Dustin Jacoby, who is a traditional kickboxer. Dustin Jacoby got countered beautifully. So, uh, and then you look to Dominic Reyes' last fight against Anthony Smith. On the other hand, Anthony Smith, the reason why he was struggling was because he was basically just keeping a high guard and then waiting for the overhand. So that's why the first round was kind of close because the overhand is not a really good strong suit for Dominic Reyes. He was blocking it pretty well for the most part, but Anthony Smith was mostly keeping a high guard, not really leaving many openings. Nikita Krylov's going to leave way more openings. Go back to that first round against Volkan Oezdemir. Nikita Krylov was getting countered quite a bit in moments, and he was stumbled. If Nikita Krylov didn't get the jiu-jitsu or wrestling entanglements, I should say, and then also counter back with some beautiful hard shots, he was out on his feet at moments. So I'm going to have to say round 1 KO for Dominic Reyes. And then Bryce Mitchell versus John Silva. This is such a 50-50 matchup. It's beautiful matchmaking from the UFC. It's so hard to predict. I'm going to have to go with Bryce Mitchell, though, by a 29-28, maybe 30-27. I'm going to go with a close 29-28, though, maybe a split decision. And the reason why is because John Silva, yes, his Jiu-Jitsu is not really known, but his takedown defense is really not great. It's really exposed for not being great. He likes to go for guillotines. Granted, Bryce Mitchell, his striking is not great either, and he gives certain things to Jean Silva, whom is a counterpuncher for the most part, that is not really good. You see things against Danny Gay, against Ilia Topuria. You see things against Josh Emmett, especially, like against such a power puncher. He was very afraid. But you look back at the situation he was in there. It was 1 week notice. It was no, not really. He didn't have a camp. He didn't have preparation. He's not really went against Josh Emmett before. Yes, he's went against power punchers, but he's not really went against the guys whose T, um, whose whose number one goal is to just land that overhand. That's his game plan to a T, is what I'm trying to say here. And John Silva here, he actually doesn't load up as much. So I'm gonna say that John Silva, even though he's gonna find some beautiful shots on the feet, he doesn't um, have the power of a Josh Emmett. And even if he does, he doesn't have the load up. He doesn't wind up from his hips. So I don't think he's gonna, if he lands, it's gonna be nearly as devastating as with Josh Emmett. And John Silva doesn't throw that much, actually. If you go back and rewatch some of his older fights, he actually, on the back foot, he kind of keeps a high guard and he lets you get some shots down, off on him. If you put him on the back foot, especially if he's up against the cage, Drew Dober was finding success a little bit in the second round doing that, and John Silva, being the weird guy that he is, where he's like, has a lot of antics, he looks away, he gets caught for certain things, where he's also like high-fiving. That's not going to work against Bryce Mitchell. He's locked in. He is. And he has beautiful takedowns. Not the best. Movsar Evloev definitely has much better takedowns, but he has great jiu-jitsu. The way that he was able to get the back take and the body triangle on Danny Gay, even though he was slipping off of it, beautiful, beautiful. And against a guy like John Silva who gets guillotines and Bryce Mitchell's types of takedowns that he likes to go for, it's the perfect um, it's the perfect setup for John Silva, the perfect trap for John Silva to go for a guillotine and then end up on his butt in a takedown. And Bryce Mitchell has a beautiful top control, really good mount. He gets that beautifully, and ultimately, I'm going to say that he gets really good control time, really good ground and pound in moments, and I'm going to say that he wins a pretty clear 29-28 here. One thing we got to consider here is Jean Silva as well. Um, when he gets his guard up, we've not really seen people shoot on that. And sometimes he against a guy like Charles Jourdain, he goes for flying knees where he messes up and then he gets taken down off that. So even though he has really good eyes, he has really good timing, sometimes he overdoes it and he ends up getting taken down for that. Sometimes he ends up getting massively overzealous, overconfident, and then that's to his detriment. So I'm going to say that Bryce Mitchell being way more focused, talking like he's the old grizzled vet in interviews as well. I'm going to say that he's way more locked in, gets the takedowns where he needs to, gets rocked, maybe dropped in one round, but it finds the control and ground and pound where he needs to, and maybe back takes and mount will get him certain rounds, certain rounds as well. So I'm going to say decision. And then we have Yair Rodriguez versus Patricio Pitbull. Yair has way better kicks. He looked so similar to Sean Woodson versus Danny Gay. He looked a foot taller. I watched Patricio Pitbull's last fight outside of the UFC. Yes, it was a win. It was great, but man, he gets countered by 1-2s in moments. He has good leg kicks, but man, I mean, it's just not a great yes, he overwhelmed him, but he got stung by one shot, and Volk has much better timing. He's much better speed. He gets the takedowns much better. He's just a he's just a ball of muscle, And Patricio Pitbull, he's smaller than Volk. He's not as long and rangy as Volk. He's not going to find the striking exchanges to get in on takedowns. Whereas Yair Rodriguez, he has amazing kicks. Yes, he can be folded in jiu-jitsu exchanges and wrestling exchanges, but he has decent jiu-jitsu. He has good triangles. Yes, sometimes if you could pass the triangles, he's kind of wimpy on the ground, but he does have some jiu-jitsu if it gets there. And man, Patricio's 37. He's out of his prime, and he was getting counter with 1-2s. He was getting, he's not really in his last fight. He's not really the guy that's imposing as well. He's kind of all out leg kicking battle, calf kick battle, just slow jabs, one per minute. It's like it was such a slow pace, and Yair Rodriguez is going to keep a pace on you. So I'm going to say that he finds the head kick in the third round. I'm going to say for Yair Rodriguez. Actually, I'm going to say in the second round. I'm going to say that Yair he pieces him up on the first round. Maybe Patricio gets a late takedown, but he doesn't get anything with it. And then Patricio's gassing for air because he's got a lot of teeps done to the body. He's got a lot of punches to the head. Beautiful 1-2s from Yair. Spinning attacks, elbows, head kicks, body kicks, leg kicks, just piecing him up all around. And I'm gonna say a late second round KO late, and it's going to be vicious, showing why the UFC has the best fighters. And I mean, this is kind of contradictory because Michael Chandler has been a Bellator fighter, but I'm going to go with Bellator Chandler. No, I'm going to go with Michael Chandler via a I'm going to say a third round. No, I'm going to say a second round. I'm going to say another second round KO. This one much more vicious. The thing about Michael Chandler is, yes, he's also wild like Paddy Pimblett, but he gets away with his wildness by being much faster. Paddy Pimblett, his leg kicks, people overrate. His kicking game in general, people overrate. He has really good kicks, but against who? These guys are much slower than Michael Chandler, much less athletic. And Michael Chandler gets dropped off punches more so. The kicks are not really his weakness, his kryptonite. It's mostly these punches, these boxers, these really good boxers who can time him. And Paddy Pimblett does not have the takedowns of a Charles Oliveira. Okay, Charles has been working on that. If you just see the technique of Charles's takedowns, beautiful blast double legs, beautiful single legs, trips even. Michael Chandler, and then the back takes of his as well. Paddy Pimblett's great, but Michael Chandler defends most back takes. I know that Poirier got the submission on the back, but it was off of a tired Chandler who was going for things that he shouldn't have in that fight. And Michael Chandler usually does go for things that he shouldn't, but he seems much more locked in as well. He seems much more focused on interviews, much more focused on actually this fight and not Conor McGregor, even though he's talking about him a little bit. It's not nearly as much as in the Charles Oliveira fight, for example. And I think that, against a guy who's so open on the feet, who tries to look like like a methodical striker, like a Volkanovski, like one of these like, oh, I'm gonna paw at the Lee hand, I'm gonna try and do the hand battle, try and get my jab going. Even though Paddy has that stance where he looks like that, he's still the same fighter that he was when he got rocked by Luigi. When he just gets rocked by Luigi, by Jared Gordon, by the same shots that Michael Chandler goes for, And I think that Michael Chandler, he might actually go for some takedowns early. You see that he in embedded and in other interviews lately, he's actually, or not interviews, but in other footage leading up to this fight, he's actually going for takedowns. So I'm gonna say that he's gonna try and stifle some of the leg kicks, seeing that Michael Chandler doesn't fare well to leg kicks, although Paddy Pimblets are overrated. I'm going to say that he tries to go for takedowns to stifle that. And I'm going to say that in the second round, he finds his timing. Paddy somehow is already gassed because in the Tony Ferguson fight, in the Tony Ferguson fight, he was already gassing for air in the third round, even though he wasn't even doing much. I'm going to say that he somehow gasses in the second round just off of getting grappled. And then in the second round, it's done for him. Michael Chandler finishes him, okay? And then Alexander Volkanovski versus Diego Lopez. I think that this is going to be a beautiful, beautiful masterclass from Volkanovski. Now, don't get me wrong, the first round is going to be Diego Lopez's for sure. It's going to be very, very, very dangerous. But ultimately, what this comes down to is Volkanovski has much better jabs, even if his reach isn't 71.5 and it's shorter and it's like 69 inches, like he said in interviews. First of all, I don't know if he's actually even saying the truth. He might just be humble. But even if he's telling the truth, he still has a much longer reach than what people think. He has a much longer build and he uses his reach to his full extent. He uses his jab very well, much better than Diego Lopez. Diego Lopez doesn't use his reach as well as he could. He mostly uses hooks and uppercuts and overhands. He doesn't use the jab too well. Sure, he can time your jab pretty well, but Brian Ortega is slower and he's stuck in the mud and he was contemplating going to 155 pounds. So he's already thinking about putting on this weight and being slower while Volkanovski was thinking about for these past 2 years healing and recovering and going back to featherweight and getting his revenge on Ilia Topuria. And now that he hasn't gotten that, he's like, okay, I'm focused on this new task at hand. He no longer needs all these title fights. He no longer needs, oh, I need to stay active. Otherwise, I'm doing me headed, as he says. I was doing me headed. He's not doing that anymore. He's not like, oh, I need another title fight. I need this. I need that. I need another fight. Obviously the 36 thing is not great. He might show up slower because he's 36 years old, and he's also got the lesser reach and he's got the lesser height. I know that those are things, those are factors to look at, and he doesn't have the power advantage. But he has really good takedowns, I think. Nothing spectacular, but they're great. They're enough to get the job done. He is a former rugby player. He's gonna get these tackles. He's gonna get these takedowns. Maybe catch the leg. Because Diego Lopez does go for some decent leg kicks, and obviously, like I said, the first two rounds are dangerous for him, especially the first round, and as well as jiu-jitsu entanglements. And he does have better jiu-jitsu than Yair Rodriguez. It's debatable whether he has better jiu-jitsu than Brian Ortega, but I think it's about even. And Alexander Volkanovski, although it was tight, he always gets out the guillotines and the triangles. He always gets out of those. I don't think he gets subbed. And so what you're looking at here is maybe tiring Diego in the third and the fourth, maybe the fifth if it gets there, maybe the fifth round. But ultimately, I think that Volkanovski, you can't tire him. He has similar cardio to a Marab even, I think. Marab, he was showing fatigue early in the fifth round, and Volkanovski, he's never really shown fatigue. So Diego Lopez here, I think that even though he doesn't have as bad cardio as people say, he definitely doesn't have the Volkanovski kind of cardio. So I'm going to say a round four TKO. Vicious when he finds the ground and pound shots. I'm gonna say that he transitions off of a takedown into maybe mount or half control or side control, half mount, whatever. Uh, I'm butchering the names of the positions maybe, but you get what I'm trying to say here. I think he's gonna find side control or full mount, and then he just finds the shots to where Diego Lopez can't guard, can't protect himself any further, eats beautiful shots, and the referee has to step in. Beautiful comeback for Volkanovski. It's gonna be a fairy tale story, 10 out of 10 card. Hopefully Bryce Mitchell gets it done. Hopefully Volkanovski gets it done. Hopefully, um, not to Diego Lopez, uh, Dominic Reyes gets it done. Hopefully these really, Mikhail Olszewski, hopefully he gets it done. Hopefully these, fan favorites. Mikhail Olszewski's kind of a fan favorite for me and me only, but hopefully these guys who have been fan favorites really show why they are still at the top of their game, show why they are elite athletes, and they finally get the win for the first time in a while. And it's Miami, so you know these Miami cards generally have some good feelings, good moments. So with all that being said, and you know, I'm praying for Bryce Mitchell here as well. Gene Silva is evil. He's totally not showing any respect for his Christian brother here. Let's go, Bryce Mitchell. Let's get it done. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Mask of MMA out.